Hi everyone. Hope you all are good. We are here for grade 9 math. You can find all the lessons on aplusstudents.com. You have to log in there using your email address and password as provided by the administrator. Then you have math from the subject tab. Scroll down to grade 9 math and then click on view all lessons. There you can find a list of the chapters. We're going to start with the chapter direct and indirect variation. Hello. So we're going to start with the chapter direct and indirect. Direct and inverse variations. We're going to start with the lesson find a constant variation. Write inverse variation equations. Identify direct variation and inverse variation. So please make sure you have your notebook and pencil so that you can note down the important examples and definitions as well. Can you hear me? Okay, here I'm on grade 9 math, the chapter of direct and inverse variation. Let's just start with the lesson. That is, find the constant of variation. The graph shows how the minutes in Wendy's notebook depends on the number of hours she spent in the class. What is the constant of variation to calculate the slope of the graph? So you can just select any two on the graph and calculate the slope by using the formula that is y divided by sigma x. So the slope is 1.5. Let's just start with the first questions. The graph shows how the total number of some years Blanca buys is related to the number of days she spent on vacation. What is the constant of variation? That means you need to calculate the slope. So just select any 2 points on the slope. Here is the first one, that is 0, 0. And here is the second one, that is x is 50, y is 10. Let's just calculate the slope, that is change in y divided by change in x, that is 10 over 550. That equals 1 over 5. The correct option is 1 by 5, or when you divide, that is 0.20. That is option number two, 0.20 is the correct option. Okay, the next one is this graph shows how the total number of postcards Kira buys is related to the spend on vacation. What is the constant of variation? So just select any and calculate the slope by using the formula change in y divided by change in x. So n equals 3 divided by 5. Option number 1 is the correct option when you divide, that is 0. Option number 1 is the correct option. The graph shows how the cost of Romi's birthday party depends on the number of guests. What is the constant of variation? So which is the correct option? Just select any 2 points on the graph and calculate the slope. So that is 20 over 10, that equals to, so the constant of variation is 2. So option number 1 is the correct option. The constant of variation is 2. Okay, the next one is so let's just calculate the constant of variation. Just select any 2 points on the graph. So the constant of variation is again 2. The graph shows how the total number of appetizer recipes Lisa knows depend on the number of weeks she attends culinary school. What is the constant of variation? So just select any 2 points on the graph. The change in y is 3 divided by 1. So the slope is 3. Option number. So just select any 2 points on the graph and calculate the slope by the slope intercept formula, that is m equals change in y divided by change in x. So slope is m equals change in y, that is 3 over 1. So the slope is 3. Option number 1 is the correction. Okay, you can complete the lesson by respected today. Let me just move on to the next lesson. Lesson is right inverse variation equations. Let's just start with the lesson. In an inverse variation, y equals to when x equals to find write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So you are given x and y. We need to calculate the k. That is the constant of variation. So k equals xy. K equals 4. Now we have k. We need to write down the equation. So y equals q over x. That is y equals 4 over x. Let's just start with the test question. Let's see how do we calculate equations in inverse variation. In an inverse variation, y equals to when it is an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So let's just calculate the k. K equals xy. X is 2, y is 2, 2 times 2 is 4. Now the equation is y equals k over x, that is 4 over x. So 4 equals xy. Option number 2 is the correct option. That is xy equals 4. So xy equals 4. Option number 2 is the correct option. In an inverse variation, y equals 2 when x equals 12. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So let's just calculate the k. K equals y. So 2 times 12, that is 24. So the equation is y equals k over x. K is 24. So the correct option is option number 1, that is xy equals 24. Option number 1 is the correct option. Number two is the correct option. That is xy equals 24. No, sorry. That's the next question. I thought there was one I'm on right now. In an inverse variation, y equals 4 when x equals 12. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So when we are working on the inverse variation equations, k equals x times y. X is 12, 12 times 4, that is 48. So the equation is k equals y over x, no, not y over x, sorry. That is xy equals 24. Option number 2 is the correct option. Oh, 48 it is, sorry, not 24. Xy equals 48. Option number 1 is the correct option. Okay, in an inverse variation, y equals 3 and x equals 12, right? In inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So which is the correct option? So xy equals 36. Option number 1 is the correct option. In an inverse variation, y equals 2 and x equals 4. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y. So which is the correct option? So that is y equals 8 over x. Option number 2 is the correct option. That is either xy equals 8 or either y equals 8 over x. Option number 2 is the correct option. In an inverse variation, y equals 3 and x equals 6. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y, so which is the correct option. In an inverse variation, y equals 3 and x equals 6. Write an inverse variation equation that shows the relationship between x and y, so which is the correct option. That is XY equals 18. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let me just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is the next lesson is identify direct variation and inverse variation. So, which graph shows inverse variation? So, you are given two of the graphs. We have to see which one shows the inverse variation. So, the first one is a straight line that passes through the origin. So, that is the graph that shows the direct variation. The second graph shows the inverse variation. This is a graph known as hyperbola that approaches the axis but does not touch them. So the first one is the direct variation, and the second graph is the inverse variation. The test questions. Which graph shows the inverse variation? A and B. Option number A is the correct option. That is the graph that shows the inverse variation. Which graph shows the direct variation? A shows the inverse variation and B shows the direct variation. So the correct option is B. Which graph shows direct variation? A is the correct option. Which graph shows inverse variation? B is the correct option, right? B shows the inverse variation. Which graph shows the inverse variation? A is the correct option. A shows the inverse variation. Which graph shows the direct variation? B is the correct option. The correct option is B. Which graph shows inverse variation? B is the correct option. The correct option is B. Which graph shows direct variation? A is the correct option. Which graph shows direct variation? B is the correct option. Which graph variation? B is the correct option. Okay, we are done with the lesson. Also, we are done with the chapter director and verse variation. So, if you have the questions, any questions from the chapter, either it is your homework, you can please ask. I'm here to answer all your questions and confusion. Questions, if you have any, either it is from the chapter director and verse variation, it is from your homework. You can write down the question in your chat box. Any questions?